so today we're going to talk about 2-5, how to graph absolute value equations. First off, before we do that, now that we're getting into graphing absolute value equations, you can also use your graphing calculator. Now to find the absolute value, you're going to take your graphing calculator and you're going to find the math button. Okay, once you hit the math button, you're going to scroll over and you'll see NUM, or number. Okay, and then number 1 underneath number is absolute value and it's a parenthesis. Okay, so if you need to use absolute values, this is the process you will take in your calculator. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is look at what does the function y equals the absolute value of x. That's just the normal parent function for the absolute value. So let's make ourselves a little table here. X and y. Okay, let's say when my x is -2. So if I plug in -2 there, the absolute value of -2 is 2. Okay, the absolute value of -1 is 1. The absolute value of 0 is 0. The absolute value of 1 is 1, and the absolute value of 2 is 2. So that gives me some points to start graphing. So let's graph those. I've got -2, +2. -1, +1. 0, 0. 1, 1. And 2, 2. So that's what an absolute value function, and that's just the parent function. That's without doing anything inside of the absolute value or outside of the absolute value. And we're going to talk about what happens when we change those numbers to start doing different operations inside the absolute value and outside the absolute value. Let's get some definitions down. Alright, so the equation for the absolute value graph will look like y equals a absolute value x minus h plus k. And I'll tell you what each of these stands for. Alright, the h and the k is your vertex. Remember that your vertex is where your graph, in this case, if we're making a V shape, the bottom of the V is your vertex. Okay? And x equals h is your line of symmetry. Okay, if you think about the word symmetry, that's symmetric. And that means that what happens on one side of the line is symmetric to what happens on the other side of the line. So if I was to draw a line on this graph, where would it mirror itself? And that would be right here. If I drew that line, it mirrors itself on each side of that line. So x equals h, which is part of my vertex, is my line of symmetry. Alright. The a value controls how wide or narrow the graph will be. Okay? And if a is greater than 0, I'm going to point upwards, which means I will make a V shape. Okay? If a is less than 0, so if it's a negative number, I'm going to be pointing downwards, which means my V will be upside down. Okay? Alright. If that value of a is between 0 and 1, so basically if it's a fraction, that means that my graph will be wider. Okay? And then if A, the absolute value of A is greater than 1, that means I'm going to be narrow. Okay, and A is basically your slope. And if you think about slope, if my A is large, that means that I'm rising faster than I'm running. So if you think about it, if this is my graph, and I'm rising faster than I run, that means that my graph is going to be more narrow. Okay, if you need to, take a minute and copy this down, and I'm going to erase it. Okay, let's do some practice. Alright, so here's my graph, and I want to graph it. So what I first need to do is I need to identify my vertex. Okay, remember that's it. That's your H and your K. So H and K. Alright, now if you remember from the definition that I gave you, that it looks like y equals A absolute value x minus h plus k. So your h, if you pull that out, that's just your 3, okay, because it's already a minus. You're basically going to take whatever is opposite of what's in here. And then your k is your 1. So there's my vertex. The other thing I should be concerned about is my a. Do I have an a value here? My a is just 1 here, which means I don't have to worry about changing my slope. This is just up 1 over 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. I'm going to plot that point. And then I'm going to go and make a V shape from there, going up 1 over 1, because my slope is 1. So, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And remember, your line of symmetry is occurring at that vertex here. So, I'm going to do on the opposite side the same thing. Up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And there's my V. Okay. The other thing we should identify is that line of symmetry that I just drew. LOS stands for line of symmetry. Remember I said that's x equals h, which in this case your h is 3. So that's my line of symmetry. Okay? So key points, you have to identify your vertex and your a value. You can graph it, and then if you need to find the line of symmetry, that's just your h value. Okay, let's try another one if you need to pause it. So the two things I need to identify first, the vertex and the a value. All right, my vertex, remember, HK. So my h value here is 5, a positive 5. Remember, take whatever is opposite of in here because this was a negative. And then my k value, well, what's my k value? There's nothing there, so it's got to be a 0. my A value, what's in front of the absolute value, there's a 1 there. So A is 1 again, which means I'm going to do the same thing, up 1 over 1. So I need to plot this first. 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. Okay, and then up 1 over 1 from that point. So, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Remember that I need to do the same thing. Here's my line of symmetry. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Okay? Alright, let's identify that line of symmetry. The LOS, it says x equals h. H in this case is 5. You can also pick it out from here. So x equals 5 is my line of symmetry. Okay. Alright, my next one, y equals negative absolute value of x plus 1. Alright, vertex first. That's HK. My H is, well, what's my H? Is there an H inside the absolute value? No. So my H is 0. And my K is 1. So there's my vertex. Alright, now I'm going to pick up my value of A. The value of A is what's in front of the absolute value, which in this case is negative 1. Okay, I'm going to plot this 0, 1. Okay, there's 0, 1. Now what I need to do is realize that my slope is up 1 over 1, but in this case it's a negative 1, which means that I'm going to be having a downward V. So instead of going up 1 over 1, I'm going to go down 1 over 1. So down 1 over 1. Down 1 over 1. Down 1 over 1. Okay, there's my line of symmetry occurring at my vertex. So again, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And there's my V, okay? I had a negative, so it was upside down. Line of symmetry, we said is x equals h, and in this case, h is 0, so x equals 0. And that's that vertex, or that line of symmetry, sorry. All right. Y equals 2 absolute value of x plus 1. Alright, vertex, HK again. Alright, what is my H in this one? H is what's inside of the absolute value, which there's nothing there, so again, 0. And the K is what's on the outside, which again is 1. So they're the same vertex. Alright, this time my A value, what's in front of the absolute value, is 2. Alright, that means instead of going up 1 over 1, I'm going to go up 2 over 1. So let's plot this vertex, 0, 1. Alright, up 2 over 1. So up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. And you see how this is more narrow? Because we had a bigger value. Alright, your line of symmetry is occurring at your vertex, which means up 2 over 1 on this side, up 2 over 1 here. your V shape. Remember, mirror what's on that side. Alright, line of symmetry is x equals h, and in this case, your x, or your h value is 0. So x equals 0 again. Okay. Alrighty, let's change it just a little bit. Y equals 1/3 the absolute value x minus 4 plus 2. Alright, so first off, identifying that vertex, HK. My H value is a positive 4, and my K value is a 2. So vertex is 4, 2. Next, my A value is what's in front of the absolute value, which is 1/3. That means I'm going to be going up 1 over 3 this time. That's, remember, it's the same thing as slope. Alright, so let's plot this vertex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Alright, up 1 over 3. So up 1 over 1, 2, 3. Do you notice this is going to be wider because my A value is less than 1. Alright, line of symmetry is occurring right there, which means on this side I'm going to go up 1 over 3. And there's the mirrored side. So there's my V, it's much wider. Line of symmetry, x equals h, which h in this case is 4. So x equals 4. Okay. Alright, next one. Y equals negative 1/4 absolute value of x. Okay. Vertex is HK. What's my h in this one? The value inside of the absolute value is 0 because there's nothing there. And my k, the value outside my absolute value, is also 0. So 0, 0 is going to be my vertex. My A value is going to be negative 1/4. Alright, negative 1/4 means I'm going to be going down 1 over 4. So let's plot my 0, 0. Alright, so down 1 over 4. It's going to be wide again, remember, because it's a fraction. Down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, where's my line of symmetry going to occur? Here at my vertex. So on this side I'm going to mirror 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's my absolute value graph. Line of symmetry is x equals h, which h in this case is 0. Alright. Let's look at something a little different. Y equals absolute value of 2x plus 6. Alright, so ask yourself, what's different about this equation? And that's that the 2 is inside of the absolute value sign. Now, this says that we've got to have just x. X has to be by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 2, I'm going to factor it out. I'm going to pull it out front. So if I pull that 2 out front, inside my absolute value, I now just have an x plus, think about if I pull out the 2, you're factoring it out, so that's 3. Because if I put this back in, 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is 6. So now I've got a graph that I'm used to seeing. I can identify my vertex, HK, okay, the H is negative 3, remember I told you, take the opposite of what's in there, the K is 0, and then A is a positive 2, okay, and then you can graph it from there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and then there will be a part 2, and it shouldn't be too long, we just have a few questions to finish up.